Rain battered Riverton as if the sky itself were weeping. Cars crawled through the flooded road, horns blaring against the roar of water. Under the dim flicker of a broken streetlight, a young woman clutched her baby against her chest, her wrapper soaked, her bare feet sunk in mud. Drivers glanced once and looked away, their wipers slicing through pity. But one man did not look away. Behind the tinted glass of a black SUV, a gold wristwatch glinted as Daniel lowered his gaze. His eyes locked on the fragile figure trembling in the storm, and that was only the beginning. Before we dive deeper into this tale of storms, pride, and a destiny reborn from the mud, tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? At Prestige Tales Africa, Nollywood-style folktales of love, betrayal, humiliation, and redemption come alive. If you cherish powerful African stories where wealth collides with struggle and courage turns gossip into triumph, don't just watch, join the family. Like, share, and subscribe, because the next unforgettable chapter is already on its way, and you won't want to miss it. Once upon a time, in Riverton, there lived Esther. She was poor, so poor that even the rain seemed richer than she was. Her dress clung to her skin like a second sorrow, her slippers torn, her strength worn thin. People said she was strong. They didn't know she was breaking. She whispered lullabies through trembling lips, not to calm herself, but to soothe the tiny girl tied in an indigo sling against her chest. Baby Joy whimpered, her lips dry, her fingers cold as stone. Esther rocked her gently, praying the storm would not wash away the last thread of hope. But that life was about to change. The rain-slick asphalt hissed under tires as traffic inched by. The smell of roasted corn drifted faintly from a vendor braving the storm, mixing with exhaust smoke and damp fabric. Esther's voice cracked as she lifted her hand. "Please," she murmured to a passerby, her tone raw with exhaustion. "Just small food, for my baby." Some shook their heads, others walked faster, umbrellas clashing above her. A pair of men near the bus stop whispered sharply. Another one pretending, one scoffed. Maybe even rented that baby. Esther heard, but said nothing. She wiped rain from Joy's face and pulled the sling tighter. From within the black SUV, Daniel leaned forward, his sharp jaw tense. His maroon suit was spotless, his tie crisp, his gold wristwatch ticking with urgency. He was late for the investor meeting that could expand his empire. Yet his eyes lingered on Esther. He saw not a beggar but a mother. Not noise, but silence. Not a ploy, but pain. "Stop the car," Daniel said. His driver hesitated. "Sir, the meeting." "Stop." The SUV eased toward the roadside. Daniel stepped into the storm, polished shoes splashing into puddles. Raindrops streaked across his face, but he did not flinch. He walked toward Esther, who clutched Joy tighter, startled by the tall stranger standing before her. "Good morning," he said gently. She only nodded, unsure if kindness could be trusted. "What's her name?" "Joy," Esther whispered. "Has she eaten?" Her eyes fell. "Not since yesterday." Daniel's jaw clenched. He glanced at his wristwatch, the ticking suddenly mocking. Then he extended a hand, not with money, but with quiet authority. "Come with me." And so the rain that had humiliated her became the curtain for her first step into a different fate. Daniel guided Esther through the dripping doorway of Maman Ketch's roadside diner. The zinc roof rattled with rain, and puddles pooled beneath stacked plastic chairs. Inside, fluorescent light flickered with an impatient buzz, fighting to outshine the steam curling from pots of pepper soup. The air was thick with fried plantain oil, diesel fumes drifting in from outside, and the damp, earthy smell of clothes soaked through. Esther shifted uncomfortably, her burnt orange wrapper clinging to her thin frame, the fabric still heavy with rainwater. Her muddy slippers squeaked against the greasy floor as she sat, baby Joy pressed to her chest in the indigo sling. Joy whimpered faintly, small fingers tugging at Esther's neckline, searching for comfort. Esther bent over him, whispering, "Sure, tomorrow will be better, my child. Just hold on." Daniel removed his maroon jacket and set it neatly over the back of the chair. His white shirt, crisp and immaculate despite the storm, caught the flicker of the lights, the fabric stretched across his broad shoulders. He loosened his tie, rolled his sleeves, and raised his hand to the waitress with quiet authority. "Bring food," he said. "Not just for her, for the child as well." Moments later, steaming bowls and plates crowded the table. Pepper soup, akara, fresh bread, fried plantain, warm milk. Esther's eyes widened, disbelief flickering across her face. This is too much," she whispered. Daniel leaned forward, his gold wristwatch gleaming as he set the bread before her. "No. It is the bare minimum." His voice softened. "Eat, Esther. She needs you strong." The clatter of spoons, the hiss of rain dripping from the zinc, and the faint chatter of other diners framed their silence. Esther ate slowly, as though ashamed of her own hunger, while Daniel studied her, his gaze piercing and unreadable. When the last plate was cleared, he reached into his pocket and produced a sleek business card. Sliding it across the greasy Formica table, he said gently, "Call me tomorrow. Don't wait too long." Her hands trembled as she picked it up, the embossed letters heavy with promise. She tucked it carefully into the sling near Joy's chest, whispering, "Hope, hold it close." Later, as she stepped back into the rain, Esther looked up at the dull gray sky and almost smiled. Perhaps tomorrow would be different. She didn't notice the card slide free, slipping into a swollen gutter where water carried it away like a secret. Fate was already rewriting her tomorrow. Morning broke over Riverton with grey skies and restless questions. Daniel sat in his study, marble walls echoing with silence. He checked his gold wristwatch again. Why hasn't she called? His fingers drummed the mahogany desk. For a man used to controlling the world with contracts and boardrooms, waiting felt like weakness. Across town, Esther clutched the indigo sling desperately, her voice breaking. "Where is it? Where?" The business card was gone. She turned her pockets inside out, searched the folds of her damp wrapper, but nothing. Her knees hit the roadside curb as Joy whimpered, and tears blurred her vision. She pressed her lips to the baby's curls and whispered, "Forgive me, I lost it." Hours later, fate intervened. Daniel's driver, Emeka, spotted her near the bus stop. He slowed, rolling down the tinted window. "Madam, are you not the woman Olga helped yesterday?" Her eyes darted nervously. "Yes, but..." "Olga has been worried. Enter, please." She hesitated, clutching Joy tighter, then climbed into the SUV. Minutes later, the vehicle rolled through the black iron gates of Daniel's mansion in a Beanie estate. Towering walls of marble rose like a fortress. Chandeliers gleamed faintly through tall glass windows, velvet curtains swaying. The driveway glittered with polished Range Rovers, Lexus, and Mercedes lined in precise order. Esther's bare sandals slapped weakly against the tiled pavement as she stepped out, feeling like a shadow in a kingdom of mirrors. Inside, the foyer stretched wide, marble floors reflecting chandelier light. Perfume hung in the air, laced with suya smoke drifting from the guards' quarters. Servants bowed low, though whispers followed. "Who is she?" "A new maid." "Look, a baby. This is trouble." Daniel walked beside her, his step steady, his presence deflecting judgment. But from the staircase above, Clara descended in a glittering sequined gown, diamond earrings swaying like daggers. Her painted lips curled into a sharp smile. "So this is her," she spat. "The beggar you picked from the gutter? Daniel, you disgrace me." Esther's cheeks burned. She wanted to vanish. Daniel's jaw tightened, his voice cutting through her cruelty. "Clara, enough." But another voice thundered louder. The matriarch entered, wrapped in regal lace, her towering jewel casting a shadow of judgment. Her walking stick tapped the marble in deliberate rhythm. "This girl will drag our family name into the mud," she declared. "A billionaire harboring a beggar. What will society say?" Esther trembled, clutching Joy. Tears pricked her eyes. "I never asked to come here," she whispered, barely audible. Then Stephen appeared at the corridor's edge, sleeves rolled up, rimless glasses catching the chandelier's glow. His voice was calm but firm. "Mother, Clara, you forget who we were. You forget how you struggled when father died. This woman is not shame. She is our mirror. For a moment, silence wrapped the hall. The matriarch faltered, memory dimming her glare. Clara sneered, a mirror or a stain? Stephen ignored her, laying a steady hand on Esther's trembling shoulder. She deserves dignity, not ridicule. Daniel's gaze softened. He reached for Esther's fingers, his gold wristwatch gleaming under the chandelier. She stays, he said, his voice echoing through marble halls. And if anyone cannot accept it, the door is wide. Clara's eyes blazed like fire restrained. The matriarch struck her stick against the floor, each tap a warning. And Esther, clutching Joy close, realized she had stepped into both sanctuary and battlefield. The Riverton market was alive with chaos that morning. Mud squelched under bare feet, baskets of peppers and tomatoes towered precariously, and the sharp tang of dried fish mixed with sweat and hot palm oil. Traders shouted over one another, voices colliding with a metallic clang of megaphones advertising discounts. Esther moved carefully through the throng, baby Joy secured in her sling, her borrowed anchor wrapper giving her a semblance of dignity. She carried a small basket of provisions, simple rice, dried crayfish, milk powder, bought with the little Daniel had pressed into her hand for survival. Whispers trailed behind her like shadows. "Isn't that the girl from the mansion?" one woman muttered. "They say she's Daniel's mistress," another hissed, adjusting her jewel with relish. "She's living off his money. Mark my words, no man helps without reason." Esther kept her head low, but the words pierced. Her cheeks flushed, though she clutched Joy tighter, rocking him gently against her chest as though his heartbeat could drown out the gossip. Then Clara struck. She entered like a queen on a stage, wrapped in a jeweled anchor gown, high heels tapping against the muddy ground as though the dirt itself dared not cling to her. Her diamond earrings caught the sunlight, her luxury clutch tucked under one arm. Around her trailed two friends, smug and whispering, eyes sparkling with cruelty. "Esther!" Clara's voice rang across the market, drawing every eye. She stopped in front of her rival, lips curled in mock pity. "So this is how you repay kindness? Pretending to be helpless so you can worm your way into Daniel's life? Shame!" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some traders laughed, others shook their heads. One boy banged a drum in rhythm to the humiliation. Esther's throat tightened, tears threatening. She whispered, "I never asked for his help." Clara's laughter cut sharper. "No? Then why do you wear the pity of the world like a crown? You think Riverton doesn't see through you?" She reached for Esther's basket, tipping it deliberately. Peppers and rice spilled into the mud. The crowd erupted, mockery, gossip, a few pitying sighs. Esther froze, shame burning through her. Joy whimpered, small hands tugging at her sling, and she whispered, "Hush, my love, hush." But salvation arrived. Daniel and Stephen appeared at the edge of the crowd, their presence parting the whispers like a storm breaking through silence. Daniel's voice carried above the noise, "Enough, Clara!" His suit gleamed under the harsh sun, his gold wristwatch flashing as he raised his hand. "If humiliation is the game, then you are the only player here." Stephen stepped forward, lifting Esther's fallen basket. His steady gaze silenced the gossip. A woman feeding her child is not shame. The shame is on those who trample her. The market grew still. Esther's tears spilled silently as she clutched Joy, relief warring with humiliation. Clara stood frozen, fury twisting her beauty, while whispers shifted from mockery to admiration. Esther, broken but defended, realized this moment was both wound and weapon. Months passed, but Riverton still whispered the story of the market. The day Clara's laughter tried to bury Esther in shame, and the moment Daniel and Stephen pulled her back to her feet. For weeks after, the gossip lived in every corner. "That girl has no place in a rich man's shadow," some sneered. Others, quieter but watchful, said, "Wait and see. Humiliation can grow wings." And indeed, humiliation was already hardening into resolve inside Esther's heart. The small room she shared with baby Joy became a place of decision. Nights when Joy finally slept, she sat by the faint glow of a kerosene lamp, staring at the few coins Daniel had pressed into her hand that morning in pity. It would have been easy to buy food and let the cycle repeat. But humiliation had cut too deep. "If they say I eat from his hand," she whispered, clutching the coins, "then let these coins become my fire. Let them burn into something greater." Stephen visited often during those weeks. His lean frame filled the doorway with quiet dignity, his calm eyes always steady. Sometimes he brought a notebook, sometimes bread, sometimes nothing but words. "You are not weak, Esther," he told her one evening, watching Joy tug at the indigo sling with his tiny fingers. "They call you names because they see only today. But tomorrow is not yet written. And tomorrow listens to those who are willing to write it with their own hands." Esther's eyes watered, but she nodded. It was not pity he offered, but a mirror that showed her the strength she had almost forgotten. Daniel, on the other hand, was not a man of many words. But he was a man of means, and for the first time in years, he felt compelled to use them not for power or status, but for redemption. The image of Clara tipping Esther's basket haunted him. He could not forget Esther's trembling lips whispering, "I never asked for his help." And though his pride resisted, his conscience pushed harder. One night, Daniel sat in his study, the golden glare of his chandelier falling across contracts and bank statements. His gold wristwatch ticked loudly in the silence. He poured himself a glass of water, but it felt like ash on his tongue. He thought of his mother's words from long ago, "A man's true wealth is not measured by what he keeps, but by what he gives to lift others." By dawn, his decision was clear. Esther would not remain a shadow of scandal. She would become a light no gossip could extinguish. The first steps were small. Daniel provided a modest sum, not enough to overwhelm, but enough to plant. Stephen added guidance, sketching out ideas in his notebook. "A trading stall first, near the old market," he suggested. Esther hesitated. "They mocked me there." "All the more reason," Stephen replied, his voice firm but kind. "You must return not in shame, but in strength." And so it began. At dawn, Esther laid out her goods: sacks of rice, tins of oil, handfuls of crayfish, salt, and sugar. She tied her wrapper firmly, her blouse neatly washed, Joy bundled in his sling. Traders who once sneered now watched with curiosity. Some still whispered, but others grudgingly admitted, "The girl is not running. She is staying." Sales grew slowly, then steadily. Customers began to notice her honesty. She measured fairly, smiled warmly, and never cheated. What she earned, she saved. What she lacked, Daniel quietly filled, though he instructed his driver never to say where the help came from. Esther believed it was her own persistence, and Daniel liked it that way. Pride did not build dignity, effort did. Weeks turned into months. The stall became too small. Stephen's notebook filled with plans for something greater. "Not just a stall," he said one evening, tapping the page. "A shop. And then one day, a supermarket." Esther laughed then, a soft, disbelieving laugh. "Supermarket? Me?" "Yes, you," Stephen insisted. "Your story is not mud. It is marble waiting to shine." Daniel arranged the land quietly, purchasing a plot near Riverton's busy crossroads. Stephen handled the details of design and staffing. Esther poured her energy into learning. She studied suppliers, compared prices, even visited neighboring towns to see how shops were run. Each night, Joy slept to the sound of paper rustling and his mother's whispered prayers. The day construction began, Clara's spies carried the news straight to her. She scoffed, her lips curling. "So this is the pity project of the century. Let them build their toy. Riverton will still know she is nothing." Yet deep inside, unease gnawed. She had seen the way Daniel stood beside Esther in the market, the fire in Stephen's calm gaze. These were not men building a toy, they were building a fortress. And then, months later, Riverton's sun rose not on mud and ridicule, but on polished glass doors sliding open with a soft hiss. Esther stood at the entrance of her new supermarket, its neon signage glowing her name like a crown she had never sought but now bore with pride. Inside, aisles stretched in orderly rows, shelves stacked with flour, oil, spices, and rice, goods that once mocked her poverty but now bore her promise of stability. The air was cool with polished floor wax, mingling with a faint scent of dried thyme and fresh soap. Barcode beeps chimed like the music of progress. Esther wore her transformation stage attire from the locked Bible, a fitted Ankara corporate gown, bold geometric patterns in crimson and navy, cinched to the waist with a slim belt. The fabric, sharp and tailored, flattered her slender build. Coral bead earrings gleamed at her ears, a small gold bracelet caught the light, and her medium-height heels clicked proudly against the polished tiles. Her hair, neatly pulled back into textured twists, gave her the aura of both grace and resolve. Beside her, baby Joy was no longer the infant of whispers and pity, but the toddler of triumph. His round cheeks glowed, his wide eyes shone with curiosity, and his curls bobbed as he gurgled in delight from his stroller, bright ribbons tied to its handle. In his small fist he clutched a colorful rattle, shaking it like a symbol of life's continuity. Despair into hope, sling into stroller, storm into sunrise. The crowd gathered thickly at the entrance. Some were the same traders who once sneered, now standing in silence as if unsure how to reconcile memory with reality. Others were neighbors, friends, students in casual shirts, women in jeel, men in agbada. They whispered, they gasped, they applauded. For once, the gossip of Riverton was not poison but awe. Daniel stood at Esther's side, his tall frame steady as a pillar. His gold wristwatch gleamed in the sun, a silent reminder of time redeemed. His hand rested lightly on Esther's shoulder, not as an owner but as a supporter. The sternness of his jaw softened. For the first time in years, his wealth felt like more than numbers. It felt like legacy. Stephen, too, was there, rimless glasses perched neatly, his understated suit lending quiet dignity. He spoke briefly to the crowd, his voice calm and clear. This is not charity. This is courage. This supermarket is built on nights of sacrifice, on the dignity of honest work, and on the strength of a mother who refused to stay bowed. And then, from the edge of the crowd, she appeared. Clara. Her sequined gown glittered under the sun like poisoned sugar, her diamond earrings sharp as blades. Her lips were pressed into a bitter smile that never reached her eyes. She stood apart, dark against the brightness of the day, her curvy frame stiff with fury. The market once gave her laughter, but the supermarket gave her silence. The matriarch was there too, wrapped in subdued lace. She entered quietly, her carved walking stick tapping against the tiles. Her regal face, once hardened with scorn, now softened by unspoken regret. She watched Esther with eyes that admitted what pride could not say aloud. Perhaps I was wrong. The ceremony began. Cameras flashed like lightning, journalists jostled for angles, and the air vibrated with expectation. Esther took the scissors, her hands trembling slightly. She lifted the supermarket keys high, and her voice, though shaking at first, grew firm. This is not just mine. It is for every woman told she is nothing. For every child born in struggle. For every whisper that tried to bury us in shame. We rise, because we must. The ribbon fell. Applause burst like thunder. Flashes lit the moment, freezing it in memory. Esther stepped forward, wheeling joy through the aisles. Her hand brushed the shelves of goods she once could not afford. For a moment, she paused, tears slipping silently. She remembered the rain, the mud, the lost card in the gutter, the sting of Clara's voice, the whisper of pity in every eye. Now those same hands that once clutched torn slippers pushed open polished glass doors. The same sling that bore despair had transformed into a stroller of hope. True wealth was not measured in coins or contracts, but in compassion. Every face in that crowd carried a hidden story. To judge less, to love more, was the only true prophet. Esther smiled, Joy giggled, and Riverton bore witness. For a moment, even Clara's fury could not drown it. What part of Esther's journey touched you most? Would you have defended her, standing against family and pride, as Daniel did? If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. A brand new tale is coming soon, one filled with twists, heartbreak, and redemption you will never forget. Until then, thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next story.